and it will take years to get this country back. And I struggle, if I'm being completely honest, to think that people who are running this country, and you started by saying, I think you're spot on, don't actually care about this country and don't like this country. They're more interested in getting on with their European left-wing lawyer mates in Brussels and lining their pockets, it seems. Let me give you another example today. I mean, this is extraordinary. It's right up your street. An Al-Qaeda mastermind. I remember the 7/7 attacks. It was my 40th birthday. I was in a car in London. He's said to walk free in Britain, my friend, despite the police saying that he remains a risk. Haroon Aswat, 50, cannot be fully assessed by the justice system due to him having mental health treatment. He was an ex-Abu Hamza accomplice. He helped the hate preacher set up the US terror group, and whilst caged in the US in 2022, the article's great in the Sun today, he told a British shrink, I'm a terrorist. I'll kill Jews, Christians and Muslim enemies. I'll kill anybody. We're going to allow this piece of crap, excuse my French, onto our streets in another example of a justice system that doesn't deal with the perpetrators, right? Punishes the victims. I already had a text from somebody who was caught up and said it's disgusting, it's unbelievable. We've got a government that walks around going, oh, we'll keep it. I don't understand. How can this man walk the streets? It's ridiculous.
It's outrageous, but you know, it's also indicative of a government and a whole entire ruling class that doesn't take the problem of Islamic terrorism seriously enough. They really do not understand the extent of this existential threat. And in fact, they discourage us from talking about it. You know, after every Islamist attack, it's always the same thing. Lay a flower, shed a tear, and move on with your life. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. Don't ask any awkward questions. You know, remember after the Manchester Arena bombing in which 21 people, mostly young people, were killed, what did we all say? Don't look back in anger. We all sang that song like some kind of ridiculous hymn. Don't look back in anger. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. You know, a few years back, Morrissey, the great Morrissey, made this really interesting point, which was that why does everyone know the names of Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, who killed 6 kids in Manchester in the 1960s, but no one knows the name of the Manchester Arena bomber who killed 21 kids in 2017? I bet you if you went on the street and asked people what's his name, most people wouldn't know what it was. It's Salman Abedi, of course. He's one of the worst mass murderers in the history of this country, and people aren't even really aware who he is. There's this culture of amnesia around Islamic terrorism, and I think this latest release demonstrates how unserious the government is about tackling this poison in our country.
And we know, and people will say, if they're listening to this, that's really unfair. Not trying to be unfair, just being honest. We know that Starmer and his government are very concerned about a certain part of society and how they will vote for them, the Muslim vote. That's a fact. I mean, I said it last week about when the Sentencing Council were making excuses. They were going to bring in this ludicrous rule. I'm sure people listening will remember this, that says, you know, if you come from a different ethnicity or religion or sexual group, they were going to advocate to judges when passing sentence, you need to be more lenient because they'll have had a hard time. And I was I was so completely gobsmacked. I think we talked about it, because a crime's a crime. I don't care where you come from. I don't care the colour of your skin, your religion, your sexuality. You break the law, you face the consequences. Actually, they rode back on it, thank God. And I thought, well, that was the strength of the media. This is ludicrous. Let me give you another story that's not been talked about much, but we did it on Plank. Do you know the Birmingham MP, Tahir Ali?
Yeah.
I mean, Birmingham is in the middle of an appalling crisis. I mean, we've all seen the pictures of Starmer, the quotes of him on his lips. Watch my lips, no rise in council tax. Well, Birmingham City Council's skint. And interesting, I had Sir John Redwood on earlier, who was saying that the old adage of, central government didn't give us enough. Birmingham's a great example of an inner city council that got its money for years from central government, decided to buy commercial buildings and invest in a portfolio of properties. And when the crash happened, they lost all that money. That's their responsibility. It wasn't central government's. Their rubbish crisis is absolutely appalling. And back to what I said in 1979, 3 million wheelie bins, rubbish strewn all over the streets, horrible smells, the impact of that, rats the size of cats. The MP Tahir Ali, who that's right in the middle of his constituency, isn't doing anything for the people of Birmingham. He's currently flying between England and Pakistan, trying to raise awareness, money and pass a bill that will build a brand new airport in Pakistan so that people who leave his constituency and go home don't have a 3-hour drive from the airport on outside of the city into the city. I'm not... that is a genuinely true story, Brendan. Yeah. That's a representative of the poor people of Birmingham. Look at their streets if you're watching online. Unbelievable.
You know, Jeremy, I think this is a really revealing and shocking story. I'm horrified by it. I mean, firstly, there's just the staggering hypocrisy of these people. These are the kind of Labour politicians, like Sarah Sultana is another one, who agitate morning, noon and night for net zero immiseration here in Britain. They are opposed to a third runway at Heathrow. They say we can't have airport construction in Britain because it will destroy the planet. And yet they openly agitate for a massive new global airport in Kashmir, in Pakistan-ruled Kashmir. So it's net zero poverty for us, but boom time in construction for Pakistanis. That is an extraordinary double standard. And as you say, the fact that Tahir Ali is the MP for that city we can see on the screen now, which is covered in rubbish, rats as big as cats walking around, very unhealthy and just a despicable sight. And yet he's more interested in what's happening 5,000 miles away. This is the poison of identity politics, where we now have members of parliament who seem more interested in issues that are about what's happening in foreign countries rather than what's happening right here in their own constituencies to their own voters.
And I think, I mean, I have to say, of all the stories today, I mean, I've listened to loads. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that somebody isn't bringing this guy to heel. I mean, again, for me, it's about posturing in politics. And I take it back to finish the full circle of Donald Trump. Many flaws as a human being. But I bet Tahir Ali's constituents, when they get to hear about that, would love a politician to stand up in Birmingham and say, I'm going to put you first. I'm going to be badgering ministers and government officials to get this sorted in Birmingham. We're going to get to the bottom of why these people are on strike. No, it wasn't central government. It actually was the Labour-controlled city council in Birmingham. It doesn't even matter if it's Labour or Conservative. They were responsible for that. I think Tahir Ali, I mean, I hear all these things about expenses and stuff. I think he should be brought to task over this. I think it's appalling. But it'll be 4 more years. It's beyond me. And I think, as we've said in the last 20 minutes, it's indicative of where we're at. We make apologies for people who commit crime. We don't seem to look after the people that are so important to our nation, and we seem to be ruled by a class and a government that get their priorities wrong, and that's all I want, a government that fights for me, that's all.
You know, Jeremy, we have to get real here, because we've had, over the past few months, we've seen Muslim members of parliament make the case for cousin marriage. We've seen them argue for new laws against so-called blasphemy against Islam. That was Tahir Ali as well, saying that we should outlaw any blasphemous criticism of Islam.
It's true.
And now we see a lot of them agitating for this airport 5,000 miles away, while often saying we can't have new airports in Britain. None of these things are in the interests of the British people. It is not in our interest to have cousin marriage. It's not in our interest to have censorship of people who criticize Islam. It's not in our interest what happens in Kashmir. That's their business, not ours. So the fact that we have this new layer of MPs who seem more interested in these issues that are actually harmful to Britain because they chime with their own identitarian, religious, ethnic worldview, that's horrific. That is a massive failure of integration. And you're absolutely right. What we need are politicians who are willing to speak up for Britain. What we have at the moment are politicians who seem more interested in speaking up for religious minorities. And that is not how a democracy
and ideological causes. Net zero, whatever. I mean, horrendous. Listen, I love our weekly catch-up. I